you everyone so much for coming along today, especially in this busy lead up to Christmas period. It just feels like such a big privilege to speak to you and tell you a little bit about my life, and I hope I can make it really interesting and worth your while. Okay, so better put my glasses on. All right, so here I am. And as Jesme said, I just turned 50 this year. Yeah, and every year that I've turned another decade older, I've kind of freaked out. When I turned 30, I freaked out. When I turned 40, I freaked out. And when I turned 50, I really freaked out. But actually, so far, it hasn't been so bad, although I did have to cancel my party twice because of lockdown. So this picture is me there at work. So I spend part of my week working for Access Health. I work with people with chronic mental illness. I run an art program with one of my colleagues, and yeah, it's a really fantastic work and very rewarding. And the other part of my week I spend with my art practice, trying to make art and parenting my three boys. So I've got three teenagers ranging from the age of 12 to 16, three boys. And yeah, I've always been a really ambitious person, but I haven't been able to really have that career that I really envisaged myself having. And I haven't had the sort of the typical career, but things are sort of starting to fall into place now. And another thing about me is that I love building community. I'm a big on community building. So just a little fun fact there. Okay, invisibility and my relationship to this topic. I'm going to talk a little bit about my early years and how I kind of flew under the radar at school and just in life. And I think I might have had some learning difficulties. Anxiety, I'm going to touch on anxiety. That's something that's invisible that I've definitely has shaped my life and that I've suffered from a lot during my life. I'm also going to touch on losing myself during early parenting. Yeah, I kind of put my kids first and really lost who I was during that time. I'm going to talk a little bit about aging and invisibility that comes with being middle-aged. And I also just wanted to note that I feel like being invisible has been something that's sort of come and gone in waves through my life. So I was speaking to one of my dance teachers, Annabella, recently, and she just told me a funny story about when she was doing feminist studies. And according to what she learnt, in the 17th century, middle-aged women were used as spies, which I thought was really cool because no one notices them. Okay, so I was just going to talk also a little bit about perception. And to be invisible, you have to exist. So you can't be invisible unless you exist, but no one's seeing you. And I was thinking about this recently during lockdown when my husband and I were going on our walks around the neighbourhood. Because when I go for my walks, I'm always noticing the trees that are in bloom. So during the winter, I'd notice the wattle. I'd be walking around and all I could see was that beautiful yellow. And at the moment, it's the purple jacarandas. But I noticed that when my husband walks around, he just sees architecture and investment opportunities. And so we're both in the same landscape, but we're seeing really different things. And yeah, I just sort of remember being a child and sort of realizing that not everybody sees the world the same way as me. And I think that's something we sort of have to remind ourselves of. Okay, on to my early years. So I was just going to tell a little personal story, and it relates to this photograph of me here. So I have really lovely, kind, caring parents who really strove hard to give me the best start in life. I'm very grateful to them. But as many people were in that era, the 70s and 80s, they were really worried about things like manners and etiquette and appearances, how my brother and I appeared to other people. So they were quite strict on those things, and they didn't like us showing off. So anyway, when this photograph was taken, I remember at the time we used to wear a lot of unisex kind of clothes. I didn't have a lot of dresses. So I got this dress. I think I was on my way to a party and Dad was going to take a photo of me. And I put the dress on and I just thought it was so beautiful with the shoestring straps and the flowers. And I put the scarf around my neck. And I just thought I looked so grown up and sophisticated with this scarf. And I had my hair up and I had this little hand mirror and I looked at myself in the mirror and I could see the light was streaming in the window and I could see my little fine baby hairs kind of glowing in the light. And I just said, Mum, I look so beautiful. And she said, Claerwen, she was in a really bad mood. She said, never say that you look beautiful. That's a very vain thing to say. And I was just filled with shame and everything that I saw about myself that I thought was beautiful just disappeared and became invisible. And I just saw this very sort of scrawny, skinny, fine-featured, fine-haired person. And that's sort of the way I saw myself really moving forward. So the other thing that made me feel a bit invisible was that I had a brother who was a really very, very cute. He was 2 years younger than me. And he was just this charismatic, funny little kid. And yeah, he was very, very smart. And anyway, when he started going to school, everything started to really go wrong. He just hated school and he just became this, as the teachers called him, very naughty kid. And my parents really started to struggle with him. And as he got older, he just became more and more sort of defiant. And he ended up getting kicked out of all the schools that he went to and just being a very unhappy person. And he kind of really dominated the family's life. But interestingly, even though he didn't complete year 10, he managed to get himself into an engineering degree in mechatronics later on. He had to drop out of that, unfortunately, but yeah, he was super smart. So I was the very good one in comparison. I was shy. I just was sort of in the background and the attention was really on him. So I think as time's gone on and I've realized that my own children have learning disabilities like dyslexia and ADHD, I've realized that his problems were invisible and that I felt invisible. So yes, my school years, I just sort of flew under the radar. I didn't like to have the teacher's attention. I really didn't like school. I used to get kind of C's and B's, the occasional A minus. And as I'm sure many of you creatives out there might relate to, I used to get on my report, Claerwen's very creative, but she needs to make more effort. I remember once a girl climbed under the tables and wrote vague down my leg. So I must have had attention problems too, maybe a little bit of mild dyslexia. Yes, but what I was really good at was wagging school. So I'd get a AA+ in wagging and forgery. These images on the screen are some fake ID that I made to get myself into the nightclubs. Yeah, so I really just avoided school as much as I could, and yeah. After uni, I went to uni and I studied psychology. I did an honours degree in neuropsych, kind of struggled my way through that. And after that, I started waitressing, and that was the sort of the gateway to going out and clubbing, which I really loved and threw myself headfirst into. I sort of felt like I'd found my people. There's some pictures of me back in those days in the mid-90s. And on the right there was this newspaper called Zebra that all the social photographs would be published in, which I was in on a weekly basis. So yeah, I kind of was quite visible at that time because people knew me in the scene. But I had a lot of anxiety and depression, little bouts of depression. And yes, I was quite an anxious person, I realize now. So despite doing a psychology degree, I kind of pushed that aside and got involved in designing logos. I taught myself how to use Illustrator, and I made some logos that people my age might be familiar with from the club scene back then. There's particularly Freakazoid and Monkey, which were quite popular clubs back then. I was really influenced by a UK design group called the Designers Republic, and I love Japanese design. Down the left there, Future Entertainment was a logo I designed and they became quite successful. but I couldn't get a job as a graphic designer, probably because I hadn't studied graphic design, and also just my anxiety would get in the way of me sort of putting myself out there and finding my way into work in that area. Oh, there's one of the flyers that I created there. All right. But this time I met my husband, the love of my life, Richard. He was 22 and I was 24. There we are on the left, sort of around the time we met. And we were both feeling kind of creatively frustrated in our careers. So we decided to move to London together after a couple of years of being together. And we were engaged at this point. We went via Bali. We can see us there in the middle, getting a bit of sun before we hit London. And then on the right there, that's us looking very 90s with the bum bags and excited to hit London. So the first couple of years that we were in London, we had a lot of fun. We both worked in advertising. I was doing artworking, which is sort of getting things ready for print. But I didn't really get the creative work that I wanted to get. I thought I was going to go to London and become this successful creative, and yes, it just wasn't happening for me. But I was very inspired by the art scene. I lived in Spitalfields, and I was surrounded by lots of amazing artists like Gilbert and George. Tracy Emin would be at the pub. Jake and Dinos Chapman lived around the corner, and I could see that in London it was possible to have a career as an artist, and I got really inspired by that. So this is a sort of a big event that happened after about 2 years of being in London. Rich and I took our first trip back to Melbourne, and we were very excited to sort of come back as these international London people. We hit the airport, and I'm waiting for my parents to see us, to meet us. We'd been away for a couple of years, and they weren't there. And I thought, oh, that's very strange. Where are they? And anyway, they turned up quite late and flustered, and they took Rich and I to a cafe, sat us down, and told us that my brother had a heroin addiction. And that was a big shock. I mean, I knew that something was wrong and up with him. He was really struggling. I knew that. But this had been kept secret from me for a few years because he didn't want me to know. Yeah, so that was a really big wake-up call. So I spent, my holiday with him, and he was recovering. He'd just done a detox. And he spent the next year clean, I think, and trying to get his life back together. And I went back to London. But yeah, so about a year after that trip back, I got a phone call. I was in London. It was 5 a.m. It was dark, and my dad was telling me that he had died. He'd accidentally overdosed. So he was 26 and I was 28. So that was obviously a very hard time for me. So I flew back to Australia, we had the funeral, and then we decided to get married and go back to London and get married as a sort of thing to look forward to, something to sort of, bring some joy to the family. So Rich and I got married in the Westminster Registry Office, just a very small little ceremony, and my very cute and devastated parents came to meet us there. I'll just wipe my eyes quickly. I've practiced this a few times. I didn't think I'd get this upset. Okay. So yes, there's mum and dad came, and we went on our little honeymoon to Paris. It was their first time overseas, and yeah, we had some very cute and distracting times together. So I was pretty depressed and dysfunctional for a couple of years, as you can imagine. There I am on the right, feeling pretty strange. Anyway, after a couple of years, I just got this real wind. I just decided I needed to take life by the balls. I realized I needed to live life for two people. I'd lost my brother. And so I decided to apply for art school. I thought, I'm just meandering around trying to be this graphic designer. I really want to be an artist. So I, by some miracle, got into Central St. Martin's. I did a fine art degree with honours there, and I was just so excited to be there. I was at that time, the fashion students and the art students were sort of all in the same building. So I used to mix a lot with the fashion students. You can see me on the left there, doing sort of around the beginning of my degree, doing some sort of painful performance art thing where I'd walk around with this sign on because I'd seen Kate Moss and met her at the nightclub the night before. And then on the right there, you can see me towards the end of the degree. I did a lot of sculpture. I did video and performance that I made sort of video performance work towards the end. Yes, you can see I've really started to embrace fashion by the end of my degree. So yeah, I started to go out to lots of really cool nightclubs. There was the electro scene at the time in London in the early 2000s. On the left there, you can see a performance artist, Little Richard, who was on the door of this club called Cash Point that we used to go to. And Matthew Gilmore down the bottom used to host this night. He used to be in a band with Lee Bowery, an Australian famous performance artist. So Rich and I on the right there, I'm wearing washing up gloves and a sponge in my hair. So I sort of, my outfits were sort of like art pieces, and I'd drag Richard along. There he is with a matching outfit on. By the way, check out his hair. I kind of married him for his hair. He's got incredible hair game. And there I am in my kitchen in London, playing with proportions and stuffing my hair with bin bags, and yeah, really sort of thinking about I guess my appearance as sort of being this kind of art form. And I met a couple of really cool fashion students, Philip Normal and Carrie Munden there on the left. We had this cool little performance group for one night only, I think. So Philip has gone on to, he's now the mayor of Lambeth in London and has a really amazing fashion label. And Carrie on the left there, she went on to be really successful. She won British Menswear Designer of the Year. She was dressing Kanye and Rihanna, Nicki Minaj, and collaborated with MIA. But me, I went home and had babies. I didn't have the same kind of trajectory. This is me kind of peak London, peak art school. On the left there with Philip, modelling some of his clothes on the boat at Cash Point was this nightclub that was on a boat, wearing just the coolest things. This was my highlight. I was on the boat modelling on the catwalk. I had Dazed Confused photographing me, all the sort of fashion industry people, and I really thought I was kind of a big deal. So I was very visible at that time. So anyway, I got pregnant at the end of my art degree and went back to Australia. Quite reluctantly. Here we are, we stopped off in Sydney to begin with, and I really thought that I was going to nail parenthood. I just thought I would keep going to art shows, keep making art. I just wear my baby in a sling. I was this woman of the world, and, what were people talking about? They obviously weren't trying hard enough if they found parenting hard. And this is me 4.5 years later, with 3 children, and I haven't been to a single art gallery, and haven't made any artwork, and yes, very overwhelmed. So here are my boys. They're super, super cute, very energetic, wild, and I really struggled. I had absolutely adored them, and I put so much effort into parenting. I really wanted to be the best mum. I think I'm a bit of I know I'm a perfectionist. So I'd put my own needs last. I struggled with postnatal anxiety, I now realize. And my 3 kids, I realize now that I know that they all have learning difficulties, but I didn't realize that in their primary school years. And they sort of bottomed out in the NAPLAN tests, but and I just sort of thought, well, why don't they enjoy school? Is it because I'm making life at home so nice? But eventually we realized there's lots of dyslexia and attention issues. And now that they're getting the right support, they're actually doing really well at high school. And they're really flourishing. So getting the right support is amazing if you do have learning difficulties. Yeah, so full-time parenting, I felt invisible at the time. So rebuilding myself and becoming visible again. What did I do? So something I'm really, really passionate about, and you could put some links, Lucy, in here about the dance classes that I went to and recommend. I started dancing about age 45, and this was just life-changing for me. I was very unfit at the time and completely uncoordinated. I had no dance experience, but I just loved handing over the kids to Richard. I get to go out and be social, meet, hang out with people, hear amazing music, and exercise. And I really wanted to be a good dancer. I was terrible at it, and I just wanted to get better at it. So I became really ruthless with my time, and learnt to prioritize time for myself. And I absolutely loved meeting people of all ages. I met Jesme through dance. She is an amazing dancer, and I really hope I can dance as well as her one day. Another really cool thing I learned was to be in my body. I just am someone who in the past has been really in my head, but dancing really taught me how to be sensual, how to just inhabit my body, and it's been a really great thing for being visible. And being visible as an older dancer. I love putting myself out there as a dancer because I don't see many dancers my age. Okay, so mental health, this has been really important for me in my journey and becoming visible, and I don't think I could have done this speech in the past. So I ended up going back to study psychotherapy, and through that I learned about healthy thinking. I learned a lot about mindfulness. I had therapy, and that's been really helpful for me. And then I've got a photograph of me there with my meds because I started taking an antidepressant and HRT in my late 40s. I used to pride myself on not taking any meds. I had 3 natural births with my kids. But now when I take those pills, the pill and a patch, I'm just so grateful for them. They've really changed my life. It's just been so good to kind of feel on a more even keel. I don't have to battle negative thinking like I used to. I'm much more playful with my kids and in my relationships. I'm much easier on the children. I've become a much better parent. So I'm really grateful to science and to that little pill in the morning. And also, my kids are older now, and that's made life a lot easier. So excellent things I learned from grief that I wanted to share with you. So seize the day. Jesme mentioned this in the intro. This is something that I'm really passionate about. I learned that every day is special. So I don't wait for another day to wear my favorite clothes. I will wear them today because who knows how long we've got. I used to not wear makeup, and then after my brother died, I thought, I'm just going to wear makeup today, even though it's a hassle to take it off. This could be my last day, so I'm just going to seize the day. Take your broken heart and turn it into art. This is a quote from Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, which I really love. And in 2017, it was my brother's birthday, which is a day where all the grief comes flooding back. And I was feeling really sad, and I thought, okay, I'm going to follow Carrie Fisher's, I'm going to follow her advice and make some art today and take that sort of grief energy and put it into something creative. And so I made my first little sculpture here from a Banksia. That sort of started something for me. So fast forward to today, my art practice, I've been building it for the last 5 years. I work with Australian natives mostly with my sculpture practice. I am really passionate about sustainability and, climate change, I guess. I think I can't make work about anything else. It's such a pressing issue. So for that reason, I am really want all of my materials as much as possible to be recycled. And recently, I think you can see down on the right, the piece that's got the sort of the two-pronged heads, the pink piece. That's the top section of that is made from recycled cardboard. All the packaging that would be delivered during lockdown, I just stick it in the bath and make this cardboard clay, which is this fantastic material to work with because it becomes rock hard and you can drill into it and it's really light. I often, that on the left there is Beryl on the beach. That's one of my sculptures that I've made a photographic print from. And I raised, I think, nearly $3,000 from selling the prints for the Victorian Aboriginal Childcare Agency. It was a little fundraiser print that I made, and that's still available. Yeah, so I like to use the gum nuts to sort of incorporate a little bit of a face into my pieces. I make wall pieces and I make these sort of totem-like pieces. And I just love the silhouette of the Banksias and the gum nuts and how Australian, uniquely Australian they are. So I'm really wanting to kind of capture that silhouette, and they're kind of like little mini self-portraits. These discarded objects, these old bits of these seed pods that the tree discards, I tart them up and make them glamorous and gorgeous, a bit like myself. This is a little series I did that was inspired by the 2020 bushfires. I was just captivated by the images that we'd see of the regrowth in the blackened bushland when those fluorescent yellowy green fronds were appearing from the trees. It was just such a sign of hope and so beautiful. And so I made some sculptures based on those images. And these are some more recent sculptures that I've done. I've recently had a bunch of sculptures commissioned by Greenhouse Interiors, who are now representing me. Yeah, so you can see with the green one in the middle there, like there's a big sculpture on the bottom, a big Banksia on the bottom, and then another smaller one on the top. And you know, I drill into the wood and I add the gum nuts and paint them. And so yes, I've just recently been taken on by Greenhouse Interiors. They're representing my work, and this is a bit of a career highlight for me, I guess. This is a photograph that was in Design Files recently. And since lockdown, my sculptures have been used in 3 different Design Files photo shoots, which feels so exciting. And part of my art practice is still performance, and I'm very busy on, I'm very present on Instagram. I make silly and funny little videos, and I'm just going to play one for you now. Broccoli is a bit of a theme in my artwork, and something I have to make nearly every day for my kids. So I quite intrigued by broccoli, but here it's attacking me. Yeah, so part of my art practice is sort of making funny little videos. So yeah, just to finish off, I just wanted to emphasize that, you know, I just want everyone to seize the day. If you can take anything away from this presentation, and be visible, wear the headband. I didn't talk about that. I meant to talk about that. Yeah, so I think I'm a little bit of a late bloomer, and I'm finally finding my feet. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy being 50 as much as I have, or aging as well, and that you can seize the day. And sorry, I was just got a little bit caught up there because I forgot to talk about something about my headband. But anyway, I'm sure you got the message about seizing the day. Yeah, so that's me.